The vast darkness of space stretched before the Galactic Concordat fleet. 23 ships of various sizes formed a perfect half-circle at the edge of the Talon Nebula. Admiral G stood on the command bridge of the flagship Eternal Harmony, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he waited. "Any sign of their fleet yet?" he asked. Lieutenant Min checked her scanners again. "Nothing yet, Admiral. But the long-range sensors confirm the spatial distortion is growing. Something is coming through." The Concordat had detected unusual energy readings from this previously unexplored sector 3 cycles ago. Their scientists had confirmed it was consistent with a new form of faster-than-light travel. Protocol demanded they send a greeting fleet to welcome the new species into galactic society and to assess their potential threat level. "All ships maintain formation," G ordered. "Remember, we represent the combined might of 16 species. We must appear dignified and unified." The bridge crew nodded in agreement. First impressions mattered in galactic politics. A bright flash illuminated the viewscreen, causing several officers to shield their eyes. The spatial fabric rippled and tore open, creating a swirling blue vortex against the black canvas of space. "Multiple ships incoming," Min announced, her voice tense with anticipation. "Preparing to count fleet size." Admiral G straightened his ceremonial uniform. The size of a civilization's greeting fleet often reflected their standing in the galactic community. The Zal had arrived with 30 ships. The Benari with 42. How many would these newcomers bring? The vortex stabilized, its edges smoothing into a perfect circle of blue energy. The bridge fell silent as they waited for the first ships to emerge. A single vessel slipped through the portal. The portal closed. "Where are the rest?" G asked, confused. Min's hands moved frantically across her console. There are no others, Admiral. Scanning shows only one ship." The lone vessel was unlike any they had seen before. Its design was asymmetrical, with odd angles and exposed structural elements. It looked almost unfinished compared to the sleek, unified aesthetic of Concordat vessels. "Open communications," G ordered, hiding his disappointment. Perhaps this was merely a scout ship, and the main fleet would arrive later. The viewscreen flickered, revealing a creature with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a single head, not unlike many Concordat species. Its skin was a light brown color, and it wore a dark blue uniform with unfamiliar markings. "Greetings," it said. "I am Commander Kim of the Earth vessel Phoenix. We come in peace and friendship." G performed the traditional Concordat greeting gesture. "I am Admiral G of the Galactic Concordat. We welcome you to our space and look forward to peaceful exchange between our peoples." He paused, waiting for the appropriate moment to ask the question. "Will the rest of your fleet be joining us soon?" The human looked confused. "Fleet? There is no fleet, Admiral. The Phoenix is currently Earth's only faster-than-light capable ship." A murmur swept through the bridge. "Only one ship? How could an interstellar civilization have just one ship?" "I don't understand," G said. "Your species has mastered faster-than-light travel but built only one vessel?" Commander Kim smiled. "We only discovered the technology 3 years ago. The Phoenix is our prototype. It took most of our planet's rare resources just to build this one." G struggled to hide his shock. The Concordat protocols had no guidelines for meeting a species with only one interstellar ship. It suggested either extreme technological inferiority or dangerous unpredictability. "We would be honored to show you our ship," Kim continued, seemingly unaware of the confusion she had caused. "And to learn about your civilization." G nodded slowly. "Yes, of course. We will arrange for a delegation to visit your vessel." After ending the transmission, G turned to his senior officers. "What do you make of this?" Science Officer Sun shook his head. "It makes no sense. Their FTL technology is clearly advanced, the energy signature was unlike anything in our database. Yet they claim to be newcomers to space. Could it be deception?" asked Security Chief Du. "Perhaps their fleet is hiding somewhere?" Hiding an entire fleet would be impossible with our sensor grid, Min replied. G looked again at the image of the lone human ship on the view screen. It was small, crude, and alone, yet somehow it had crossed the vast distances between stars. Prepare a diplomatic team, he ordered. And double the security detail. These humans may be more interesting than they appear. 3 days had passed since the Phoenix made first contact with the Galactic Concordat. Commander Kim and her small crew had been welcomed with formal ceremonies and endless diplomatic meetings. The humans learned that the Concordat was made up of 16 different alien species who had achieved interstellar travel centuries ago. The Concordat representatives were polite but distant, clearly viewing the humans as primitive newcomers with little to offer. They keep asking about our fleet, Engineer Lee said as the human delegation gathered in their private quarters aboard the Concordat station. I don't think they believe we only have one ship. Commander Kim nodded. They measure strength by numbers. The concept that we focused all our resources on a single advanced vessel doesn't make sense to them. The Phoenix was docked at Outpost Serenity, the Concordat's forward base in this sector of space. The massive station housed representatives from all 16 species and served as a major trading hub. The meeting was interrupted by a violent shudder that ran through the station. Emergency lights flashed, and alien warning signals began blaring throughout the corridors. What was that? Medical Officer Choi grabbed the table to steady herself as another tremor hit. The station's communication system crackled to life. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. We are under attack. Commander Kim led her team through the chaos-filled corridors toward the command center. Concordat aliens of various species rushed past them, some looking frightened, others determined. They arrived at the command center to find Admiral G and his officers staring grimly at a tactical display. The screen showed several unknown vessels approaching the station. 2 Concordat defense ships were already destroyed, shown as fading dots on the display. Who are they? Kim asked. Admiral G turned, surprised to see the humans. The Nox. A predatory species from the Outer Rim. They raid our territories occasionally, but never with such force. His voice was tight with worry. Never this deep into our space. Another explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered. Our outer shields are failing, reported Lieutenant Min. Their weapons are somehow bypassing our frequency modulators. How is that possible? G demanded. Our shield technology has protected us for decades. They must have adapted, another officer said. Found a weakness in our standard configurations. Commander Kim studied the tactical display. The Nox ships moved in unusual patterns, targeting specific systems on the Concordat vessels before they could respond. You always use the same shield frequencies, don't you? She asked. Admiral G looked confused. Of course. They are the most efficient patterns developed by our engineers. But predictable, Kim said. On Earth, we learned that the best defense isn't always the strongest, it's the most unpredictable. Another blast hit the station, stronger than before. Warning signals flashed across multiple screens. Station integrity at 60%, called a technician. Main reactor containment showing signs of stress. Admiral G made a quick decision. Begin evacuation protocols. We must abandon the station. The command center erupted in activity as officers rushed to their emergency posts. Let us help, Commander Kim said. Admiral G looked at her with skepticism. With one ship? Against a Nox battle group? The Phoenix was designed with adaptive defense systems, she explained. Our shields constantly shift patterns. Maybe we can buy you time to evacuate. Before G could respond, the main view screen showed 3 more Concordat ships exploding under Nox fire. All defensive vessels lost, Lieutenant Min reported, her voice shaking. Evacuation transports will be defenseless. Admiral G looked at the human commander, desperation replacing his earlier skepticism. What can one ship do against such force? Sometimes one is enough, Kim replied. She activated her communication device. Phoenix crew, prepare for immediate departure. Combat protocols. As Kim's team rushed toward their docked ship, they passed crowds of Concordat civilians being directed to evacuation transports. Fear was evident in their alien faces. The Phoenix's engines were already warming up when they arrived. Kim took the pilot's seat while her crew prepared the ship's systems. Their ships are bigger and probably stronger, Engineer Lee warned as he activated the defensive systems. But predictable, Kim replied. They've been fighting the same way against the same defenses for too long. Let's show them something new. The Phoenix detached from the station and moved toward the approaching Nox vessels. The small human ship seemed impossibly tiny compared to the attacking fleet. All systems ready, reported Officer Choi. Though I still think this is crazy. Commander Kim gripped the controls and smiled grimly. Crazy is what humans do best. The Phoenix accelerated directly toward the enemy, its shields beginning their unpredictable dance of shifting patterns as the Nox turned their attention to this unexpected new threat. The Phoenix banked sharply, narrowly avoiding a volley of energy blasts from the largest Nox vessel. The human ship was small and nimble compared to the bulky alien attackers. Commander Kim's hands moved steadily across the controls as she guided her vessel through the chaos of battle. Shield status, she asked, not taking her eyes off the viewscreen. Engineer Lee monitored the defensive systems closely. Holding at 83%. Our frequency rotation is keeping them from getting a solid lock. From the safety of Outpost Serenity's evacuation center, Admiral G and his officers watched the battle unfold. The tactical display showed the Phoenix as a tiny blue dot weaving between much larger red triangles representing the Nox ships. Impossible, Lieutenant Min whispered. How is one ship surviving against 5 Nox cruisers? The Phoenix spun in a tight spiral, evading another attack while positioning itself beneath one of the enemy vessels. The human ship fired a precise burst at what appeared to be a random point on the Nox cruiser's underside. The result was immediate, the enemy ship's engines flared wildly before shutting down. Direct hit to their power distribution node. Lee announced excitedly. 1 down, Commander Kim said calmly. 4 to go. Back on the station, Admiral G leaned forward, studying the tactical display with newfound interest. Did you see that? They identified a weakness we never found. The remaining Nox vessels adjusted their formation, clustering closer together for better defense. It was a standard tactic used against Concordat ships, one the Nox had employed successfully for decades. They're grouping up, Officer Choi reported from the sensor station. Standard defensive pattern. Commander Kim nodded. Just as I hoped. Lee, reconfigure our shield harmonics to match their weapons frequency. Lee looked up in surprise. Match it? That would normally amplify damage, not prevent it. Trust me, Kim said. And prepare to divert all power to forward shields on my mark. The Phoenix accelerated directly toward the center of the Nox formation. From the station, the Concordat officers watched in horror. What are they doing? Admiral G demanded. That's suicide. The Nox ships fired simultaneously, their combined weapons creating a devastating wall of energy. At the last possible moment, Commander Kim shouted, now. The Phoenix's shields flared brilliantly as they absorbed the Nox energy weapons rather than deflecting them. For a brief moment, the human ship disappeared entirely within the blinding light of the attack. They're gone, Lieutenant Min said quietly. Then, incredibly, the Phoenix burst through the other side of the Nox formation, its shields glowing with captured energy. Reverse shield polarity and release stored energy. Kim ordered. The Phoenix released all the absorbed energy in a spherical burst that washed over the closely packed Nox ships. Their systems overloaded instantly, leaving them drifting and powerless. On the station, stunned silence gave way to excited chatter. Admiral G stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 5 Nox vessels disabled by a single human ship. How did they do that? He asked no one in particular. As the Phoenix circled back toward the station, a new alarm sounded. Lieutenant Min checked her sensors and went pale. Long-range scanners detecting multiple spatial disruptions, she reported. Massive energy signatures consistent with Nox battleships. How many? Admiral G asked. At least 20, she replied. A full invasion fleet. Commander Kim's voice came through the communication system. We heard. The Phoenix is returning to dock for quick repairs. 15 minutes later, Kim and her crew stood in the station's command center with the Concordat leadership. Engineer Lee was explaining their battle tactics to the fascinated alien officers. Your ships always use the same shield configurations, he said. And you've been fighting the Nox the same way for generations. They've had time to study and adapt to your patterns. Admiral G nodded slowly. While we never adapted ours. We believed our technology was superior and didn't need to change. Humans had to think differently, Kim explained. On Earth, we faced resource limitations that forced us to make our systems smarter, not just stronger. We built the Phoenix to learn and adapt during battle. A technician interrupted with urgent news. The Nox fleet will arrive in approximately 3 hours. The room fell silent. Even with the Phoenix's impressive performance, one small human ship couldn't possibly stand against 20 Nox battlecruisers. Commander Kim stepped forward. Admiral G, do you have engineering facilities on this station? Of course, he replied. Why? Because we have 3 hours to teach your engineers how to modify your remaining ships with human technology, she said. It won't be pretty, but it might work. For the first time since the crisis began, Admiral G smiled. Lieutenant Min, gather all available engineers and technical staff. We have work to do. The evacuation of Outpost Serenity stopped as Concordat and human crew members worked frantically to modify every available ship with the Phoenix's adaptive technology. The upcoming battle would determine whether one human ship's innovations could turn the tide against an overwhelming enemy force. The massive engineering bay of Outpost Serenity buzzed with frantic activity. Concordat engineers worked alongside the human crew, modifying the remaining defense vessels with improvised versions of the Phoenix's adaptive systems. Chief Engineer Bay from the Concordat stared in fascination as Engineer Lee opened an access panel on the Phoenix's main drive. This configuration makes no sense, Bay said, his translator struggling to convey his mix of confusion and admiration. You've connected the shield generators directly to the sensor array? Lee nodded as he continued working. It lets our shields instantly adapt based on incoming threat data. We call it reactive defense. But this violates standard energy distribution principles, Bay protested. All our engineering texts say this would cause catastrophic feedback loops. It would, Lee agreed, if we used standard power conduits. He pointed to a strange-looking component. This is a quantum buffer. It prevents the feedback by temporarily storing excess energy in a subspace pocket. Bay's eyes widened. You've weaponized a power regulation failure. It wasn't a question but a realization. In the command center, Commander Kim stood with Admiral G, reviewing the sensor data on the approaching Nox fleet. 2 hours until they arrive, G said grimly. Even with your modifications, we are outnumbered 5-1. Kim studied the tactical display. Numbers aren't everything. Tell me, Admiral, how long has the Concordat been using the same shield and weapon configurations? G thought for a moment. Our current systems have been standard for about 200 years. We update the power output occasionally, but the fundamental design remains unchanged. And before you met us, when was the last time you encountered a species with a completely different approach to space travel? G looked uncomfortable. Perhaps 3 centuries ago. The 16 species of the Concordat have been the dominant civilization in this region for a very long time. So you stopped innovating, Kim said. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of fact. We refined, G corrected. We perfected what worked. Kim shook her head. Perfect is the enemy of better. On Earth, we never had that luxury. We faced resource limitations, climate disasters, and political divisions. We had to solve problems with whatever we had available. Before G could respond, Lieutenant Min rushed into the command center. Admiral, you need to see this. She activated the main view screen, showing a detailed scan of the Phoenix's drive system. The human FTL drive doesn't use conventional spatial folding, Min explained excitedly. It actually creates a controlled dimensional slip. That's why our sensors didn't recognize it initially. G looked at Kim with new understanding. Is this true? Kim nodded. We couldn't generate enough power for traditional spatial folding. So our scientists tried a different approach altogether. But dimensional engineering is incredibly dangerous, G said. The risks of catastrophic failure are high, Kim finished for him. We know. We lost 3 test ships and their crews developing this technology. But we had no choice if we wanted to reach the stars. The revelation settled heavily on the command center. The humans hadn't built just one ship because they were primitive. They had built one ship because each ship represented an enormous risk and investment, a gamble born of desperate innovation. Your people risk much, G said quietly. We dream big, Kim replied with a small smile. Officer Choi entered the command center, interrupting their conversation. Commander, Engineer Lee says the modifications to the Concordat ships are complete. But he's not confident they'll hold for long. They don't need to, Kim said. They just need to surprise the Nox long enough for us to exploit their weaknesses. Admiral G turned to the tactical display. We have 7 functional ships including the Phoenix. The Nox have 20. 6 ships and a surprise, Kim corrected. The Phoenix will be doing something different. G raised an eyebrow. What exactly? Kim's eyes gleamed with determination. Something the Nox won't expect. Something humans excel at. Improvising. The station shuddered suddenly, and warning alarms blared throughout the command center. The Nox fleet. Lieutenant Min called out. They've arrived earlier than predicted. They must have improved their drive systems. Admiral G straightened his uniform and faced his officers. Prepare all vessels for immediate launch. We will protect this station and its people. Commander Kim activated her communicator. Phoenix crew, battle stations. It's time to show the galaxy what one human ship can do. As they rushed to their vessels, Engineer Lee fell into step beside Kim. The modifications to the Concordat ships are rough. They might not hold under sustained fire. They don't need to be perfect, Kim said. They just need to be unexpected. The Nox have been fighting the same enemy the same way for centuries. Today, they face something new. Outside the station, the darkness of space lit up with the arrival flashes of the massive Nox battle fleet. The modified Concordat ships, their hulls now bearing hastily attached human technology, moved into defensive formation. And at their center, the Phoenix powered up its unusual drive system for what might be its final mission. The Nox fleet moved into attack formation with practiced precision. 20 battleships, their black hulls absorbing rather than reflecting the distant starlight, arranged themselves in a perfect half-circle. In the center of their formation, a massive command vessel directed the smaller ships. The Nox had used this strategy successfully for decades against Concordat forces. But today was different. All modified ships report ready, Lieutenant Min announced from her position on the station's command center. Admiral G nodded, watching the tactical display with tension evident in his posture. Where is the Phoenix? He asked, noticing the human ship wasn't in the defensive formation with the Concordat vessels. As if answering his question, the small human ship suddenly appeared from behind Outpost Serenity, accelerating directly toward the center of the Nox fleet. What are they doing? G whispered. Aboard the Phoenix, Commander Kim gripped the controls tightly as she guided her ship through the opening volleys of Nox fire. The enemy weapons were powerful but predictable, targeting where Concordat ships would typically be. All power to the dimensional slip drive, Kim ordered. Engineer Lee looked up from his console in shock. The slip drive? But we've never used it for tactical maneuvers. It's only designed for long-distance travel. Theory says it should work for micro-jumps, Kim replied, her eyes focused on the approaching enemy fleet. And humans are good at testing theories under pressure. The Phoenix shuddered as Lee redirected power to the experimental drive. Ready on your mark, Commander. The Nox command vessel fired its main weapons array, sending a wall of destructive energy toward the human ship. Kim watched the approaching blast, calculating timing in her head. Now, she shouted. For a fraction of a second, the Phoenix seemed to blur at the edges, then vanished entirely just as the Nox weapon reached its position. The energy blast passed through empty space. An instant later, the Phoenix reappeared directly above the Nox command ship, so close that the larger vessel's shields rippled from the dimensional disturbance. It worked! Officer Choi exclaimed. Dimensional slip successful. Target their shield generators, Kim ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline rushing through her system. Fire everything. The Phoenix unleashed its modest weapons directly at the previously identified weak points of the Nox vessel. Without time to adapt, the command ship's shields collapsed under the precisely targeted attack. Meanwhile, the modified Concordat ships engaged the rest of the Nox fleet. Their newly installed adaptive shields shifted frequencies continuously, confusing the Nox targeting systems. Weapons that should have destroyed them instead glanced off or caused minimal damage. In the command center, Admiral G watched in amazement as the tactical display showed Concordat ships not just surviving but actively damaging the Nox vessels. They can't adapt to our changing shields, Lieutenant Min reported, excitement in her voice. And our modified weapons are penetrating their defenses. The Phoenix completed another dimensional microjump, reappearing behind another Nox battleship and targeting its propulsion systems. The slip drive is overheating, Lee warned. We can maybe manage 2 more jumps before risking a complete failure. 2 is all we need, Kim replied. Target the other command vessels. Across the battlefield, the Nox ships began to break formation, their coordinated attack faltering as the modified Concordat vessels pushed forward. Without their strict formation, the Nox tactics fell apart. The Phoenix completed its final dimensional jump, appearing directly in front of the last major Nox vessel. The human ship's weapons fired immediately, disabling the enemy's main weapons array. Slip drive is offline, Lee reported. We're on conventional engines only now. Kim nodded. It's enough. Look. On the main viewscreen, the Nox fleet was in disarray. Several ships drifted powerless, while others attempted to retreat. The modified Concordat vessels pressed their advantage, their confidence growing with each successful engagement. In the command center, a communication officer turned to Admiral G. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Nox fleet. They're surrendering. A stunned silence fell over the command center before erupting into cheers and expressions of relief. Admiral G closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself a moment to process what had just happened. Hours later, as the Phoenix docked at Outpost Serenity, Commander Kim and her crew were met by a formal reception of Concordat officials. Admiral G stepped forward, performing a ceremonial bow that hadn't been used for a foreign species in centuries. Commander Kim, you and your crew have saved not just this station but perhaps the entire Concordat, he said formally. We misjudged your civilization based on numbers rather than innovation. Kim smiled. One ship was all we needed. Not because it was the strongest, but because it was different. Admiral G nodded thoughtfully. The Concordat offers Earth full membership and technological exchange. We have much to learn from each other. And much to build together, Kim added. I think you'll find humans make interesting allies. In the days that followed, news of the victory spread throughout Concordat space. The story grew with each telling how the aliens had waited for a fleet, but one human ship was all it took to change the course of galactic history. 6 months later, Admiral G stood on the observation deck of Outpost Serenity, watching as a new ship emerged from a dimensional slip. Unlike the Phoenix, this vessel bore both human and Concordat design elements, a physical representation of their new partnership. The second human starship, Lieutenant Min said, joining him at the viewport. G smiled. No, not just human anymore. The first of many built by all of us together.